Well, Christy, on our sweet corn crop,
yeah, not so good.
I'm thinking maybe love is overrated.
I love corn, but the planting didn't go as well as had hoped.
We planted the first crop with love. Katriel planted it, and we got very little.
Yeah, that was our fault though.
We didn't plant it deep enough for conditions, and we didn't water it at all, and it just dried out, and I think it may have sprouted and then died.
It didn't rain much during that time, and we were so busy we didn't get the sprinkler out. And
yeah. So we didn't end up with much corn. Now this second crop of corn was planted with the Haas planter, and we got a lot better stand with it. Now there's a couple areas here where the rabbits have eaten it. That's a little bit of a challenge.
Rascally wabbits.
But down here we got a pretty good stand. This is something I'm really proud of. And I wanted to show it to you guys. This is my garden plow. My great-grandfather had it. That's old. And when I was a young guy, somehow we ended up with this because they were throwing it away. At that point it was unpainted. There was no sealant or anything on the handles. So I did this painting probably when I was maybe 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that. This is Alice Chalmers Orange Rust-Oleum paint. And I painted that, and then I painted this black. This wire is new. That got put on since I lost control of it. So this is my original garden plow. Now we didn't know to call them wheel hoes then. We just called them a garden plow. I thought you'd like to see it. I couldn't get my brother to let go of it when I was needing a garden plow, wheel hoe. So because of that, we ended up with the Haas. So your parents got us Haas for Christmas, me and Katriel. But I got the opportunity here this evening. I thought I might use this a little bit, and then we got a new Haas to show you. We want to show you that in a little bit too. So when I say I used this as a kid, you might say, what do you mean? You plowed in the garden like you're doing here now? Well, I did plow in the garden, but I never did really like plow where any of the crops were growing. Dad and Mom allowed me to have a little section of the garden, maybe the size between me and the camera there, and this size, maybe a little bit bigger, that I just plowed all summer. I know it sounds silly, but hey, it was no more useless than a video game. But
True.
I would just plow, and I would, just like I'm doing here, I would, I would go out here and I would lay off a land, I would call it. So when plowing with the tractor, you notice this plow throws to the right. Well, it throws a little more to the right than the left, but now, so there's two ways that you would plow. One is you throw all the dirt to the middle, and so you always turn to the right. And this is when you're throwing all the dirt to the outside, and you always turn to the left. So I would plow it one day, throwing the dirt out to the side, and the next day, and that's called a haw land. There's two ways of two lands, and if you're plowing with horses, they would tell the horses Gee or Haw when they got to the end of the row, when the horses would know which way to turn. So in this case, this is called a haw land, because when they get to the end, you'd tell the horses to haw and they would know to turn left. At least that's what my dad told me. I am right about that, Dad, right? Now one thing Christy's doing horribly wrong with the plowing is putting her right foot out on the plowed ground.
How else am I supposed to push? You can have it back now.
Okay, well, I tell you what we do. Why don't we get the regular Haas out and we'll see how he pushes in comparison. Okay, so we've got the Haas here in the two-wheel mode. So we can actually put a wheel in the furrow. And I've got the right-hand plow on here. First thing is the plow throws a lot better. You can put your right foot in the furrow, see? This thing pushes wildly easier. I think it's because the effect of your pushing action is applied right down at the wheel. So that's about as apples to apples as we can get. Now I realize that's not, we're not doing something we would normally do with our garden plow, although I did it when I was a kid for years. But see, we're almost finished with this land. This is just how we would plow in the field.
Why does it matter which way you throw the dirt?
In this little, example, we're only going about this deep, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really noticeable. But if we were plowing 8 inches deep, we would have a big furrow left right here in the middle. It's okay to leave that 1 year, right? But next year when we plow this, we don't want to do that again because we will end up with it humped next to the edge of the field. In fact, that's what you see right back there.
Really?
And that little hump there is that's a fence row between 2 farms, and that's where they've plowed it up to the edge or constantly pulled it away, and the fences was up there too. So next year when we would plow this, we would go out and find that furrow.
Okay.
That was never my job. That was always for somebody older than me. Drive around on the tractor and you say, I believe there's where it is. And then when they went to plow it next year, they would start by making the land the other way on that furrow, like this. So see, then that begins to hump it back up in the middle.
Yeah.
And you would do a G land like that, where you come to the end, tell the horses to G.
Okay.
And they would turn right all the time. Now, my family referred to them as Gee and Haw. We would communicate how we were going to plow this. Well, we'll Gee that over there, and then my dad would say, we'll haw it out, basically the distance between. So we would kind of talk about how we would do our lands like that. But of course, by the time I was along, we had no horses. We just had to learn what the terms meant. Be interesting to see in the comment section if anybody else has ever heard of that term of Gee and Haw. I have no idea how to spell it. The horses couldn't spell, so I guess it didn't matter. Okay, enough history lesson. We've got a new Haas we want to show. So this is the Haas high arch wheel hoe. Now it's kind of a special purpose rig. See, it's not as general purpose as what we were just showing. This is meant to straddle a row. It's got this big high arch in the middle, no axle across the middle, and it makes it so that you can get over this corn, which is a foot tall, pretty easily. Now they've redesigned the plows a little bit. The actual plows themselves, they take 2 bolts now instead of a single bolt. I think maybe that'll keep them from twisting, although I never really had any trouble with the other ones. They're also able to slide in and out quite a range here. We could, if we were working on some really small and delicate plants, we could reverse the plows so that they're throwing outward away from the row. But this corn's big enough to be able to handle a little bit of a ridge. Now you might ask, why would you want a ridge? Well, look right in here. You can see some little weeds beginning to grow right there. If we throw a ridge on that corn, we can cover those weeds up and hopefully keep them from causing us any issue. So let's see how this works. Here we go. Now I'm pushing 2 plows here, and it's in ground that hasn't been worked since this corn was planted. So it's not, a real easy push, but it's doing a good job. It's throwing it right up over there and covering those weeds. You can vary the width of these plows, see, so if you want to make them wider, you can do so. I'm probably have, at least an inch or maybe 2 on each side that I could widen. So you could get those plows a lot further apart. You could also get the plows a lot closer together if you needed to, at least another ½ inch, right? So you've got a lot of flexibility there. I didn't notice any problem with height, and that corn's pretty tall. I would think the main use for this would actually be smaller vegetables when you're trying to get real close to them to avoid having to do hand weeding very close to them. But it's working very well on this corn. In a lot of ways, it's easier to drive since you have some pulling on each side. Yeah. Than it is trying to stay on one side and yet stay close to the row. Because a lot of time, it doesn't work very well. So this, you'll notice we've got a lot of height too. We could have our corn, our corn could be up like this and we could still get over it. Basically, this corn, as long as you could turn it down there. So a lot of those top leaves you can even bend a little bit when you go over. Some of that crabgrass was pretty big. I should have done this earlier. Weeds are the easiest to deal with when you get them small. When they get big, they're much harder to deal with. This corn right here is about as big as we can handle. See, we're actually having to push the leaves under the bar. But that corn is up to my knees, see? Yeah. Now, these handlebars are fully adjustable. I had them down this high yesterday, had to adjust them. So there's plenty of room for adjustment. Okay, So this thing works really well for straddling the rows and doing this. One thing I would say is it's kind of a unitasker. I don't know that I could use this for our general purpose garden plow. But if you do a lot of gardening and you don't use any chemical or anything to kill your weeds, it's worth investing in a wheel hoe. And if you do very much at all, it's worth investing in a second one to be able to get this high arch. I think I'll finish this now with Haas and the old plow. Maybe you and I can finish it together.
I think I may have something to do.
Well, love is overrated, at least when it comes to sweet corn planting. Don't you think?
Yeah, I guess so.
The Haas planter did a great job. We've put a link in our description to buy these Haas products. These are great products. We wouldn't endorse them otherwise. Now, the thing is, we don't get any credit unless you use that link. If you go directly to the Haas website, we won't get any credit. So we really would appreciate it if you're interested in these Haas products, if you'll go to this link below and use that to get to their website. I think you'll really enjoy this product. So we really do thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.
Does that make you happy?
Actually, it does. You know, I never would actually plow the real garden where I could have actually done Dad and Mom some good because it was too hard. But where I kept mine plowed all the time, I could keep it soft enough. The soil wasn't near as nice as it is here. So I never did them any good. With all of that, quote, work that I did, I never actually helped them in the garden. Or at least not much. Confession time.
Yeah. Sorry, Mom and Dad.